When I was 5 years old, I had a dream, and I'm going to tell it to you right now. I'm walking in my house, and it's very dark, middle of the night. I sense something's in the room with me, so I stop to look and see this dark figure, human-like, walking towards me, powerful and intent. I knew he was evil, terrified. I turn and look for help. I see an old man on the other side of the door, and he's struggling to get in, eyes fixed down on the lock. He was so frustrated that he wasn't even looking at me. I turn back and suddenly I realize I'm standing face to face with this dark figure. So what does it mean? I've thought a lot about it over the years, and I've come to associate it with how my own struggles for human development relate to the state of the world. If you think of my perspective in the dream, it represents symbolically the deep concern that everybody in this room has for the health of humanity and for the biosphere. The dark figure represents the dark forces in our individual experiences that underneath form the roots to the global problems that are threatening us. The old man, an outmoded paradigm so ineffective with dealing with the roots to our problems that he can't even be in the same room with them, as it were. So turning back, we're left with the recognition that individually and collectively, we must grapple with our own shadows and learn how to turn darkness into light. I grew up in Central Maine, and music has always been a fundamental part of my life. When I was 18, I moved down here to Portland, Maine, and started studying music full time. I was out on my own. I was studying this thing I was extremely passionate about, but I had this one problem. I wasn't very happy. I was kind of depressed. And for some reason, I was missing a healthy orientation to life. And I didn't know where or what or who to seek out to find it. So like when I was a kid, I started having these vivid dreams, but it was happening every night. So many that I wanted to write them down. I wanted to know what they meant. So I started reading. I started with books by Carl Jung, and he talked about dream interpretation, but he emphasized that dream interpretation requires understanding mythology. So I picked up books by Joseph Campbell and went through the mythic images from most ancient all the way through to Star Wars. I got interested in quantum physics, and I read a book by Fritjof Capra comparing quantum physics to Eastern mysticism. So I started reading Taoism and Confucianism. I got really interested in the history of religions in general, East, West, and shamanic. And then I thought, why not philosophy? So I started reading philosophy all the way from Plato to Kant, which got me into economics of E.F. Schumacher, into sociology and biology and cosmology. And I started to see the same themes come up again and again. Different disciplines having these common threads. And I was learning to see that underneath, universal principles underlie and shape everything in life. And it profoundly affected the way I looked at the world. At the same time, I was fortunate enough to meet some wonderful people who shared the same thirst for knowledge and thirst for wisdom that I had. Most important, a mentor who saw the difficulties that I was going through, acted like a father to me and helped me move forward. And he taught me that the most important use of the principles is to apply them practically in your everyday life to grow. He introduced me to a book called I Ching. It's an old Chinese text. And it's a divination method that's evolved into a contemplative tool to study these universal principles. And the best way I can explain it is, as a kid, I'd play video games, and if I got to a level that I couldn't get past, I'd buy the guidebook, and I'd look it up and come up with tactics to move forward. Well, the I Ching became my guidebook to life. If I had a problem, I could find this practical wisdom to apply, and I could move forward. So, contemplative study in concert with a family of friends that I could learn and grow with inspired me with hope. I've learned that the quality of my growth depended on how much effort I put into understanding and incorporating the principles behind my ups and downs. And thinking back to that dream, face to face with that dark figure, this was how I could turn darkness into light. So I started to think about how can I use music to convey to others the same learning that I had gone through. So I started developing what I call the Principle Project, where I want to take music and visual art, film, and spoken word and combine them into both an educational and entertaining experience that can reflect and explore these universal principles with the hopes that other people could see the same value that I did. So it's based in 4 parts, each part pertaining to a particular principle. And as the meaning of one principle augments the other, it forms a sequence that I intend to be an artistic meditation on the fundamentals of consciousness. The sound of Om represents the breath of life, flowing in and out of everything around us back to the beginning of time and space. In China's ancient Taoist philosophy, Master Lao Tzu spoke of a great mystery from which all things emerge. And in the book of Genesis, it says that the Spirit of God created the world out of a formless darkness. Across the globe in the contemplative traditions of all cultures, a common theme is that everything in the world comes from one common source. The many cultures on earth tell different stories, yet they all share this same common principle of unity. Everything has an origin in oneness. The Big Bang Theory states that from a singularity, the universal roots to creation began with an explosive flaring forth. And from this ultimate unity, all the changing features of the universe are derived, from galaxies to the solar system to the earth and to our bodies. For centuries, history has been dominated by the idea that science and spirituality are at odds, the material world and the world of ideas separate. Yet what a privilege it is now to consider that this classical opposition in worldviews can be seen as 2 natural and complementary aspects of one bipolar truth. In physics, the Big Bang is explained as a theory to be measured, quantified, and tested. Parallel to that, in poetry, mythology, religion, and metaphysics, symbolic language is contemplated for wisdom to manage human nature. And if we appreciate that neither scientific nor symbolic language can stand alone in understanding life as a whole, we open ourselves to realizing unity as harmony between the complementary forms of knowledge needed for sustainability of life on Earth. The unity of the universe as one is only subject to being perceived when what is fundamentally one changes to become 2. Hence, in ancient Chinese symbolism, the number 2 stands for contrast and complementarity, or universal reciprocity, and is represented by the terms yin and yang. Yang is heaven, or the creative principle, symbolizing what is light, strong, and of the spirit, while earth is yin, or the receptive principle, and it symbolizes what is dark, yielding, and of material. The relationship of contrast and complementarity is fundamental to how everything, actual or possible in the world, persists and changes, including whatever we see, feel, or believe. Without differentiation between light and dark, neither light nor dark could be seen. And as electromagnetic energy, light is part of a spectrum of two poles of short and long wavelengths and can be divided further into a spectrum of warmer and cooler colors. The quantum physicist Niels Bohr taught that at the most fundamental level, matter is both particle-like and wave-like at the same time, inspiring to adopt the yin-yang sign on a crest for himself. All matter and all manner of thoughts are subject to a multitude of contrasting relationships. Whether it's the day and night, summer and winter, hot and cold of cycles on Earth, or from seed to fruit and birth to death. The DNA or fundamental blueprint of life is composed of a series of contrasting pairs. And likewise, all of our senses derive from the dualistic on and off firing of synapses in the brain. And behind the nature of ideas, mythologies from around the world are filled with contests between contending gods and forces. Sages through the ages seek truths about good and evil, right and wrong. Contrast is rooted in every aspect of conceptualization. In our psychology, we manage masculine and feminine tendencies. And we develop by means of parent-child relationships, older generations leading the younger. And whether it's high or low notes in music, or light and dark shades of color and art, or in technologies like computers, cell phones, the binary code of ones and zeros is virtually everywhere. All aspects of life in the universe fundamentally move and change by means of two cyclical relationships that yield infinite variations. From the mystical unity of one came two, heaven and earth, the necessary contrast needed for universal change. Yet within universal change, there's a potential for reflective awareness. Therefore, three represents the reflective perspective of human consciousness. Symbolically, stories like the Garden of Eden tell the tale of the dawn of human consciousness. The garden was described as a paradise symbolizing the harmony of nature, a perfect equilibrium of complementarity. Adam and Eve lived in this equilibrium, unaware of anything outside the garden. Yet once they ate fruit from the tree of good and the tree of knowledge, they became awake to opposition, thereby becoming responsible for conflict and conflict resolution. This set them on a journey outside the garden, and the only solution was growth of wisdom for conflict resolution to regenerate the peace they once knew. How can we describe human consciousness? Human consciousness is self-aware, which allows for the experience of subjective and objective perspectives at the same time, which in turn allows for higher faculties of the human mind. Yet remembering that all relationships of contrast are fundamentally part of one whole, subjectivity and objectivity are fundamentally one. Thereby, human consciousness is a universe perceiving itself. Human consciousness is evolving from the most ancient to the most modern forms of human expression. From primitive groups to societies of individuals, human consciousness evolves day after day, moment by moment, awakening to greater and greater depths of the universe. Human consciousness is co-creative, meaning with awareness comes choice, and all of our choices can be in harmony or not in harmony with universal change. Our choices affect how we evolve human culture. And our choices affect the evolution of the environment around us. And with the choice comes responsibility. From the unity of one came the changing patterns of two. From 2 points of polar opposition and complementarity, eventually came humanity, with perspectives in harmony or in conflict with universal change. From those 3 points comes the fourth, the challenge of human development. Nature evolves and changes in a miraculous harmony, balancing its contrasting aspects as one whole. Blessed with our ability to perceive, it is our task to learn to manage human nature by learning to reflect balance in our thinking and actions. However, while the evolution of human culture is full of amazing discoveries and innovations, noble personalities, and genius, just the same, there is war, oppression, starvation, and destruction to the biosphere. And while our technical abilities are moving in great strides, never before have we so much needed great strides in human development. And since the global problems are demanding that we refine the way we live with each other and the earth, just how do we go about it? Well, Confucius said in The Great Learning, "For there to be peace in the world, nations must be well ordered. For there to be order in nations, families must be well regulated. For there to be well regulated families, individuals must cultivate themselves." Human development by means of self-cultivation is a process. 1, committing to become the best person possible. By 2, acting to understand wise insights versus impulsive ignorance. And 3, acting locally for global sustainability. Contemplative education is an effective tool for self-cultivation, learning to see that all features of life are integral parts of one whole. Confucius goes on to say, if individuals cultivate themselves, families will be well regulated. If families are well regulated, nations will be well ordered. And if nations are well ordered, there will be peace in the world. The large-scale character of groups are all dependent on the quality of character of the individuals involved. And while we all feel the urge to enact change out in the world, it is of chief importance to enact change within ourselves. And in the face of the great darkness that is threatening history, the greatest power for positive change is in individuals learning to see, live, and learn to evolve with the world as one. And as Golda Wolf-Richards says, whether we are cultivating authentic enlightenment or furthering inadequate assumptions, the power of the principles in each individual's character affects collective destiny. Therefore, as anyone's growth generally reflects universal creativity, every increase in sage consciousness widens paths for successful journeys toward heaven on earth. Thank you.